The only time imposter syndrome cannot exist is when you're being yourself. Whenever you feel your heart race like that, it's like an internal applause because deep down your gut and your heart are in alignment.
There's this inner knowing of, fuck no, there's something wrong here. And yet it can be really scary to leave that normal path. There's so many women listening who want to leave their regular jobs, but they're stuck in this feeling of, who am I to do this? The reason why you want to emulate that person is not because they're saying the words they say. It's because they are themselves.
That version of me was still so alive in my nervous system. I had to really go in and really love on that version of me and do some really, really deep healing.
Nothing in you is too much or not enough to be here. When I brought myself into the circle, it permissions them to do the same.
Welcome to the Women Wellness Podcast. I'm your host, Usha Nandi, and you're in the right place if you're looking to heal yourself as a woman, not just for you, but for all the women who came before you and all the women who will come after. Learn ancient practices, hear vulnerable stories that remind you you're not alone and you're definitely not crazy, and tap into the bravery that it takes to be an undomesticated woman in the world we live in today. When I first started sharing my work in the world and facilitating women, it was scary. It's a big deal to put yourself out there and say, hey world, I'm coming out of the broom closet. This is me. And what I wished I had in those moments of getting stuck in imposter syndrome, of asking myself, who am I to do this? Or who's going to take me seriously? Or don't I need to wait until I have a doctorate or until I'm fully healed in order to share? What I really wish I had is a council of women who had been there, who had done that, and who were ready to take my hand and show me the way. I didn't have that back then, but I've gathered the women today so that you can have access to it. Whether you're just starting to share women's work in the world and want to facilitate groups, want to lead one-on-one sessions, or whether you're already doing it and need kinship, need support, need community to feel less alone and remember that you're definitely not crazy. And that's what today's episode will do. I've gathered 3 incredible graduates from my 4-month Womb Circle Facilitator Certification to give you a behind-the-scenes look of what it actually takes from yourself, energetically and physically, to lead women in the world and facilitate deep healing spaces for women in your community. I'm joined today by guests Rae Kerwin, Melissa O'Malley, and Jennifer Jimeno, where we talk about all things facilitation, whether it's busting through imposter syndrome, figuring out what it's actually telling you, or learning how to protect yourself energetically when you work with one-on-one clients or lead group spaces. If you work with women, there's something in this episode for you. And if you feel called to work with women in a deeper way, my Womb Circle Facilitator Certification might be for you. Doors are open now to the only cohort of my 2026 training. And when I asked over 300 graduates of this program if they would recommend this training to a friend, 100% of them said yes. This training is renowned, and you can learn from the graduates of it inside this episode. I hope you enjoy. I am so lucky to be sitting here with 3 amazing, powerful, wise women who are graduates of my Womb Circle Facilitator Certification. And I'm just so grateful. Melissa, Kelly, Jenny, thank you so much for being here. I want to give the women who are listening just a little snapshot of your work, of the way that you work with women and serve them. So Melissa, why don't we start with you? Then we'll go Kelly and Jenny, and just kind of introduce yourself so that the women can get to know you.
Sure. Thank you. I'm Melissa O'Malley, the self-care witch. I come from a background of clinical counseling, all the clinical things, very, very clinical, sterile. And I left that track and started doing more magical things, more juicy things, more fun things. And that has evolved over the past 6 years so much. And it's really fun to look back at where I started clinically and then where I started to bring some juice in, and now how very, very juicy it is right now. So most of my work, circles are like a big, big part of my work, maybe the main part of my work, my main source of income, my main way of connecting and holding my community. And I feel so, so lucky for that. So I do circles every week in person, moon circles, breathwork circles, even ecstatic dance circles, feminine rage circles, and then some like online things as well.
I love that. And so you like, and we'll get into that, you like left your muggle clinical, super clinical job and then started bringing that juice and magic in, which is, I think, such an inspiration for anyone listening who's like, oh, I'm not feeling served. This doesn't feel right, this format. And you kind of change the format, but are still delivering the same presence. So I'm so excited to get more into that with you. Thank you, Melissa. Kelly, let's hear from you. Tell me about your work, Kelly.
Hi, I'm Rae Kerwin, and I started out in New York City, and I was a bartender there for 17 years. Then I had my son, and I became obsessed with birth work, and I became a doula. I studied to become a midwife. I moved my family from New York City to Fargo, North Dakota, and now to Minneapolis to and really, really go after my dream, really, of becoming a midwife. And then as I was leaving that world, I left that world about 8 years ago. I really was interested in energy work. And the first trainings that I did was craniosacral and abdominal massage. And that's what I really thought that I was going to be doing because I still had the birth world clientele in my world. And then I started doing energy work and I just really, really fell in love with doing energy work. And I started holding different types of ceremonies. I've done a number of different types of circle trainings. And yeah, it's become a really big part of my world. I try to do at least one a month. And then I do, bigger sort of retreats, maybe once or twice a year. Yeah. And so that's kind of
I didn't even know that, Kelly. I didn't know that you were like doing the midwife track now. Is that correct?
Yeah. Yeah. And I still attend births every once in a while. I just attended a birth a couple of months ago, but it's, that is a really tough job. It's really hard on the family, on your body, on everything. And it was time for me to go on a different path. But I'm so glad that I have that training and that I have that intimacy because my work is very intimate. For the most part, I do work one-on-one with people everywhere from, from limiting beliefs, really subconscious work into energy work and then somatics. So really addressing the body in all of its different layers.
I love that. And birth work is so that. It's like meeting women at the threshold of all of these altered states. It's so, so powerful. Thank you, Kelly. I'm so glad that you're here. Jenny, you're up. Tell us about you, Jenny. Your beautiful white shirt.
Thank you for having us, Usha. I'm so excited to be here and quite frankly, feeling my heart jump out of my chest. So just wanted to name that a part of one of the things and gifts that continue to weave into my life, like this never ending tapestry through womb work with you, has been that inherent connection with my body and really welcoming myself whole and not having to exile any part of me to bring myself into the presence of such amazing people and other humans. And what I was doing before womb work was hairstyling for 17 years. And little did I know was preparing me for my deeper passion, which was understanding people and being able to just be on the other side of a conversation in which you could truly listen to receive what they were saying instead of needing to like answer back all the time. And it just really began to activate this nudge in me. And then after realizing that it wasn't inspiring for me anymore, I knew that I wanted to become a mother, and I just knew there was more to pregnancy and motherhood than like the pathology of it. And so I was scrolling one night and came across Women Wellness. And that was sort of the beginning of this initiation that continues to blow my mind, really. I carry a quote with me in so much of my work and have brought to so many of my womb circles, which is something I'll never forget you said to us, which is that motherhood will pulverize you into a million pieces and rearrange you into the woman you're meant to be. And this work has truly been something that I wouldn't say something where I was anticipating this arrival, but rather just this remembering of who I am beneath the noise of what happens when you actually slow down to be with yourself and create space for your truth to surface. And the way that I share this work with women and mothers is through somatic practice and monthly circles. They can range anywhere from one-to-one work to group work and daytime retreats. And yeah, it's just been continuing to teach me as I grow. And it's really blown my mind how humbling this work can be, and just how the degree to which you decide to integrate it into your life is the degree to which you have that, you can offer that same pathway for other women. And it just like really brings so much emotion to my heart, because it's such meaningful work. And I'm so excited to dive further into this because yeah, it's just powerful.
Thank you so much, Jenny. And that brings me to like this kind of moment where we have this threshold for all of us, where we grow up in our culture that teaches us certain things about our body, that teaches us certain things about what it means to be a woman, what it means to be a good woman, what it means to be a successful woman, what that looks like in our culture. And then all of us as witches, as wise women, as wild, undomesticated women, there's this inner knowing of fuck no, right? Fuck no. Like there's something wrong here and there's something weird here. And yet it can be really scary to leave that normal path, to leave the path that you make money on, the one you get validation from, the one you have a community around. And so I want to kind of pose this question to all of you, because I know that there's so many women listening who want to leave their regular jobs, who want to maybe explore a different track, or who maybe want to add more of like the magic, the juice, like you said, Melissa, into their current credentials. But they're stuck in this feeling of, who am I to do this? And who's going to take me seriously? And I know for myself, I honestly feel like it was just last year when I really started being authentically myself online. Because for 9 years of my work, I had this sensation of, I'm not a doctor, so who's going to take me seriously? And I kind of was always waiting, like, one day I'll go back to school to get my PhD. One day I'll get my doctorate. And then once I do, then I'll be fully who I am. Then women will take me seriously. And I realized that the problem wasn't that I didn't have the piece of paper, because I had worked with plenty of women who have doctorates, who have PhDs, who have that piece of paper, and they're still stuck in that feeling of, who am I to do this? And so I want to hear from you, like, how do you deal with imposter syndrome that comes up when it comes to coming out of the broom closet? Like, waving your freak flag, like committing fully to this work, which is kind of alternative, which is a different route than what is quote unquote the norm. Like, how do you deal with imposter syndrome and what works for you? So I don't know who feels called to talk first, but I'd love to hear. Yeah, Jenny, go ahead.
I love this question so much. And I feel like I have discovered the ultimate hack for imposter syndrome in my,
All right, please.
yeah, well, in my own experience, and it's what's worked for me, and maybe it will speak to whomever is listening to this. But the only time imposter syndrome cannot exist is when you're being yourself. And so the way that I meet this before facilitation, and no matter if I'm in front of one person or 50 people, I am equal nervous. I'm just excited. And I once heard someone say, whenever you feel your heart race like that, it's like an internal applause, because deep down your gut and your heart are in alignment. And so they're cheering you on. So something that I tell myself before holding that space is, how would I, Jennifer Jimeno, facilitate this in a way that's true for me? And every time it just deactivates that charge, that imposter syndrome creates this filter of like, who am I to do this? That inner critic that wants to come online. And it actually creates this space for the type of grace you would offer someone else that was in your seat, which I've never looked at someone that was facilitating heart-centered work and thought like, what an imposter. I've always sat there and thought like, I feel so grateful and honored to learn what they have to teach. And I want to say to anyone that considers this path of womb work is that no one else can teach it the way you do. So when you come up against that imposter syndrome, just notice what it feels like in your body to really inhabit the honor of being present with those women and teaching it from your lived life experience up to that point in time that brought you there. That to me is like a sacred cadence that no one else can bring. And also, how can people find you if you're just trying to be like everyone else? And that's not what woman wellness has ever condoned or taught. Like, I've always found you have this unique way, and the team has this unique way of creating space, or at least helping us meet who we truly are, which is so rare because I've thought I've needed all the certifications and all the things, but there's something very unique about this space. So yeah, with imposter syndrome, how would you as yourself teach it and facilitate it and hold it? And then, because imposter syndrome can only exist when you're trying to be an imposter. Isn't that? But yeah, anyway, I hope that helps somebody. It certainly helps me.
Thank you so much, Jenny. Melissa, you have something to share?
Yeah, yes. And I feel so inspired by what you just said. I think that is so, so powerful. I want to like weave that into this other piece. I think that first of all, having the courage to be you the best way that you possibly can, as full out as you can, as loud as you can, that is anti-capitalism. That is decolonization, and that is like bringing humanity back into healing work. And that is so powerful. And there are a lot of things that we can learn and that we can gain through education and evidence-based practices and certifications and things. So there's a space for that. And I always feel a little oomph, a little pep in my step when I'm like, oh, I am doing the work that just needs, that my community needs, and I'm doing it in the way that only I can do it. And I think probably any of us who have learned from you, Usha, have like these little nuggets that just live within us. And as I was considering taking this Womb Circle Facilitator training, you had said something about imposter syndrome. And I had experienced in my past, anytime I would speak to that imposter syndrome, people in my life would be like, no, you know a lot. Like, you're good. Just like let that fall away. It's okay. And I appreciate that. That's like a nice reminder. But you had said sometimes it is that. Sometimes you do need to remember who the F you are and just show up.
You can swear here, me. Right?
You need to remember who the fuck you are and show up. But sometimes that imposter syndrome is telling you something. It's telling you that maybe you could learn more, or maybe you could do this in a deeper way. And so like knowing the discernment of like, is this just self-doubt, or is there something missing from my like toolkit, from my breadth of knowledge that I can gain somewhere that will really help me to do that mental letting the imposter syndrome fall away. So like surrounding yourself with the support and the tools, and also believing in yourself. I think there's like a kind of a balance or a tricky mix of both of those things.
Thank you. Kelly, do you have anything to add here?
I do. It's really interesting because I never meant to have a business like I have now. I never meant to sort of be a leader. I always, was a support person. And it was really my community that kept coming to me and really depending on me. And it was this really weird thing where I was like, people kept coming to me with bigger and bigger problems, wanting my advice, wanting to know all these things. But I did feel like an imposter. And what I had to really do was I had this one moment, I was in a meditation and I realized that it was, I couldn't believe that people would come to me and want to know what I think or what it was for advice for me. That felt so crazy. And what I had to really do is I had to go back and really do some deep, deep healing of my early 20s. My early 20s when I was crazy, living in New York City, playing in bands and drugs and alcohol and all that stuff. That version of me was still so alive in my nervous system and so used to letting people down and so used to just kind of like being a fuck up. And so I had to really go in and really love on that version of me and do some really, really deep healing. And as I began to really heal her, that aspect of me, that's when my leadership and my ability to stand up in front of people and the imposter syndrome really, really came down. So anytime that I'm beginning to feel a little bit about that, to me, it's a trigger. It's like, ooh, there's something in my past that's asking for attention from me and is asking for a little bit more love. And I just go in, I'm like, okay, so what version of Kelly Rae needs to be healed today? Is it the 23-year-old? Is it the 8-year-old? Who is really feeling into the imposter syndrome? Who is really the one who's feeling insecure? Yeah. And so I always look at imposter syndrome as a trigger for me that I need to be focusing in on a different level or layer of my being, right? There's like something that happened. Maybe there's like a trauma. Maybe there was something that happened that I just can't remember that's really become the filter of how I'm presenting. And so for me, it's like okay, Kelly Rae needs to do some more work here. So that's how I deal with imposter syndrome.
I love that. Thank you, Kelly. And I think, I love that there's kind of a thread that goes through what the three of you are saying. And I've been working a lot. For the last 2 years, I've been going to somatic therapy every single week. It's like so expensive, but so worth it. And every time my therapist just says like, and that makes total sense why you would feel that way. And I'm like, please just take my money. Like, just tell me that over and over again, that my feelings make sense. It's so orienting when you grew up in a home where it's like, why are you being dramatic? Why are you so sensitive? All of these things. And one of the things that my therapist and I have been talking about is this pressure to perform. And I think that in our world right now, there's so much pressure to perform everything. Like when I look at other spiritual accounts, when I look at other womb work accounts, when I look at, a lot of leaders in this field, there's this felt sense in my body of like putting on goodness. And as someone who comes from like a really Catholic background, I am no stranger to performing. Like 4 signs in Leo, I can perform all day long. And I notice that performing is fucking exhausting. And whether it's like performing spirituality, performing knowledge, performing like harmony, it takes a lot to perform. And it also, there's this kind of felt sense in your body when you see someone performing that there's this lack of coherence of like what they're saying and their body don't really line up. And so I've been really tracking that a lot in myself of instead of putting all of this pressure on myself to perform, to create these like amazing life-changing classes and experiences and, all this pressure on myself, can I, instead of performing, just think about sharing? And that little shift of like, okay, I don't have to perform anything. Even, I had my daughter's birthday party last week and me and her dad aren't together. And I was having all this anxiety beforehand of like, okay, all these people from her school are going to come, all these parents who are still together and all these things. And right, everything looks perfect from the outside. But me and her dad aren't perfect in our communication, hence why we're not together. And I felt all this pressure to like put on this face of like, we co-parent and we work together perfectly and everything's fine and healed and integrated. And I just really had to let that go and recognize like, okay, so much of that pressure to perform, as you just named, Kelly, like that comes from my life where I had to perform perfection. And I thought that if I was perfect, then everything would work out. And so really, I love what each of you has said is that bringing forth that authenticity, bringing forth that ability to share and also to integrate the past, to really bring in more integration and healing into our systems. But, it can be hard in the world we live in to share authentically. And I know that's something that can come up for a lot of women who want to do circles, who want to expand their impact, like the thought of being visible and sharing about their life, sharing about the things that they've been through that have been hard, showing themselves on social media, like, let's just name, it's fucking vulnerable. And I've had experiences. I even just had one last week where I recorded a podcast with Allison Armstrong, and she's like one of my greatest teachers and inspirations in healing my relationship to men. And I put it out there, and there was a lot of mixed reviews, and some of the women like didn't resonate, and they took it in a way I didn't even like expect them to take it. And I was just sitting there, you know, it being a podcast and me putting it out there, not being a class where I could answer questions or try to control the narrative, and just sitting in this feeling of like, holy crap, this is so vulnerable to come out and share like my real true heart and what's been real for me and where I'm still healing and still figuring it out, and even like show my blind spots that I might and probably do have because I'm a human. And it's really vulnerable. And so I want to know, like, how do you all deal with that? Because that's a real thing that a lot of women rub up against, like whether they're just thinking about starting a practice of working with women or whether they already are, but kind of feel at the ceiling of what they're able to do because they can't get beyond themselves. Like they don't know how to share. So how do you all, like, first, do you even feel that vulnerability, or maybe that's just me? And then how do you deal with that in yourself when you rub up against that feeling of like, I'm so exposed in the world, leading from my heart, doing my heart's work? Does anyone have anything to say on that?
I can say
Yeah.
something on that. Yeah. Yeah. So I think that I share a lot on social media from a very vulnerable place. I try to share in a good way, maybe not such a vulnerable place. I want to make sure that I've dealt with it. I've sort of moved through the bigger emotions. I make sure that before I post anything where I am being overly vulnerable, or maybe I'm talking about something that's pretty recent, I make sure that I'm good with myself and that I feel really grounded in what it is that I'm talking about, right? So if I'm feeling wounded, if something happens and I'm talking about something where I'm actually really wounded still and I haven't processed it properly, if someone says something or leaves a nasty comment or doesn't agree with me, yeah, that's gonna sting and that's gonna hurt. And the deeper that you go into healing what that really means, you tend to share less vulnerably, right? Where it's like, I'm not trying to come across like that I know everything. If you read any of my posts, you know that that's not it. And taking like that radical responsibility for my own emotional well-being, so that, yeah, if someone says something to me, what is this really? What is this? Is this them trying to, put me in my place? Is this them trying to do something? Or is this an opportunity for me to look at this comment and be like, oh, okay, I can see what they're trying to say, and I can agree with it or not agree with it. The internet is this huge place of so many opinions, and knowing that, what I like to say is, if I can only talk to half of the population, I'm not really very good at my job, right? So if I'm trying to please everyone, or if I'm trying to just please a certain amount of, people that think like me, it's not very interesting, right? To me, it's just not very interesting. I want to come from my whole self. And I'm very vulnerable. I've been a woman now for 47 years. I have lots of experience. I have a lot of wisdom behind me. And I would say the biggest thing is to just make sure that you have really, really dealt with what, like, the deeper triggers before you go posting.
I love that, Kelly. I always say, like, show your scars, not your wounds, right? And I have had that experience before where it's like, I remember when I first shared about eating meat again after years of being a vegan and vegetarian, and I shared about it, and I was like in that same kind of vulnerable place of like, okay, I'm still feeling kind of tender. I didn't even realize that a part of me wanted to just be seen and received. And of course, if I'm sharing in that way, I'm always getting the opportunity for growth where I get the exact opposite. And there was like over 1,000 comments on the post, like, cancel her, unfollow her, like, you're a fraud, you're a fake, like, you're dangerous, right? All these things just because I'm saying, like, I meet again and this is working for me. And after I shared about it like a year later, and I got the same kind of response, and I actually did one of my first podcasts in the Women Wellness podcast on that same journey back to meat. It's like, I can now sit in that and share about it, and I don't give a fuck if vegans come for me. Like, I don't care if people say, like, cancel Usha, whatever. It's like, goodbye. Like, it's fine. I love you however the hell you want to eat. Like, I'm just going to eat what works for me. And so I love what you said, Kelly, of like, make sure you're good with yourself before you go out there, because oftentimes I notice in the places where I'm not good with myself, that's where these kinds of energies come in and actually invite me to do that deeper healing, that deeper integration. So that's such a great piece of advice. Melissa or Jenny, do either of you have anything to add there?
Yeah. Hold on. Yes, I think so. I think, first of all, it's such a continual unfolding. And I think you do such an excellent job, Usha, of weaving your stories into your spaces and your circles. And that inspires me so much. And there's something in me that's like almost delighted to hear that you still come up against an edge there, because I certainly do too. I consider myself like a vulnerability junkie. I like love to like just bear it all and see what happens. Think I'm pretty well versed in that, and it's a continual learning. It's a continual like raising your threshold for that comfort and feeling solid within yourself, even if all the vegans hate you or whatever it is. Coming from such a clinical track where I was trained thoroughly to be a blank slate, to be able to work with anybody, to keep my biases in check. And I'm thankful for that training. But moving out of that and into a more human, more witchy, just human, right? Facilitator, honest facilitator role has been really interesting for me to find those edges and expand myself and permission myself to be whatever I am as I am it, and not have to hide so much of me in order to maybe be respected. So I'm learning more and more all the time. And I think one of the biggest factors is deep embodiment and like willingness to be where you are, how you are, what you are, and welcoming all of you into a space. And that doesn't mean that your cup is just sloshing all over and flooding everybody else, but it does mean that you are tuned in and aware and embodied and can speak to what's coming up for you, or like manage it without suppressing it. Whatever, you still have to be appropriate and professional maybe, and there's room for our selves in this kind of work. And one last little thing, as a tarot baddie, speaking to tarot baddies, the strength card is about strength and courage, right? And feeling like you can meet a formidable moment and having the confidence to do that. But my tarot teacher, Lindsay Mack, speaks about the strength card being just as much about vulnerability as it is about strength. And how when we enter a room unarmed, unguarded, and just willing to be scared and strong, that impacts the whole space. And on the other hand, if we enter a room totally guarded and performing and needing to be seen a certain way or do it right or whatever might be coming up for you, that also is felt. And I think you spoke to that. We can see it, we can feel it. And that always really inspires me. Like, if I am able to be a little messy and really human and also embodied and powerful and magical and strong, I want people to witness that and to permission that in themselves too, that we can be so magical and also real messy at the same time. Just like this world is so beautiful and so broken in so many ways. We get to like experience and model a microcosm of that, each of us. That's so good. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. So that's beautiful. Jenny, do you have anything else to add?
Yeah, I would say that for myself, when I took the Womb Circle Facilitation training, I remember you had a guest teacher who was your bestie, Mallory. And so something that's really helped me with vulnerability and authenticity is somatic work. And I know it can be very expensive, and there's a lot of resources out there to help get you back in your body. Something that is true for me is that the older I get, I'm 42 now and I have 2 kids under 5. The older that I get, the more I realize that your body is a love story. There's a love story inside in which your nervous system is prioritizing your safety. And so sometimes when we're stepping into something new and we want to be our most authentic, true self, that choice can feel very dangerous to the nervous system. And so it's just helpful to, like, I'm unpacking this in real time for myself to just create and make space for all of who I am, which sort of echoes what Melissa, you said, and what you say, Kelly, as well. And it is true, like teaching from your scars and not from your open wounds, and just checking in with yourself. And when I say your body is like a love story, it's just how would you create space for the whole of you, like you would a lover or someone you care about, or, you know, being a mother. My children teach me this every single day. They are so humbling in the human experience, but also I don't believe it's separate from how we facilitate. And like Melissa said, it doesn't mean you come in there and your cup's sloshing all over the place, but it is this permission, to echo what you said again, to fully admit who you are, the whole of who you are in that moment. And it's okay to do it messy, that you don't have to be like this advanced, multiple certified person to hold space for women. You just have to be willing to inhabit your whole truth and let that lead you. There's such powerful flow that comes from that. And I'm still learning this. I'm learning this every moment. And of course, to notice like how much of that is connected with maybe something from the past that is still alive in you, but also to give yourself the space to air that out and be in relationship with yourself, because again, the more you can meet yourself, so too can you meet others. We're human. This field is a wild, crazy ass space of like 80 billion people, and there's only one of you, and it's just like, that's a lot to hold. And it doesn't have to be so serious. It can actually be a lot of fun when we take away the performative notion behind it, or even what you said, sharing versus performing. It's like informing versus performing. Like, how are you sharing how this informed the way your life has been informed by the choices you've made? And hopefully that helps in the moment. But I just think we put a lot of pressure on ourselves, and it's okay to take the foot off the pedal sometimes.
I love that. You know, so I had this experience where I was like 19 years old, just finished school, like went to Costa Rica. This old man like hit my like 1995 like Toyota Camry. That was like my first car I had in school. And this old man like backed into me and he like totaled my car. And so I had finished school, I was like working, and I took that money, I think it was like $600. And instead of getting a car, fixing my car, I took that money and I bought a one-way ticket to Central America. And I went to Central America. I was only going to be there for like 3 months. And then I got a job teaching at a yoga studio. And one of the women who was teaching there, her name is Audie. And she was just building a yoga studio or yoga school for women. And she was like, hey, I'm running my first training. Can you help me with the back end of my business? At this time, I had like $300 in my bank account. I had miscalculated where Guatemala was from Costa Rica. I'm not good at geography. I'm good at womb work. That's basically the only thing I'm good at. So I thought Guatemala was way closer to Costa Rica than it is. I thought I was going to have enough money to get there. I didn't. And so I was essentially stuck, and I didn't want to ask my family to help me. I was just like, I'm going to deal with this on my own. So I started working for her, and she put me on as a lead teacher in her first yoga teacher training. And I had never really taught a class to women before. It was like I had done speech and debate. I was a total nerd, done theater, all the stuff, had performed, but had never just sat as myself, not in a role at the front of a room. And so here I am, 19 years old. I teach my first class, and Audie looks at me. She's like, congratulations, you're a teacher. And I was like, it was like, you know, in a movie, like a spotlight gets shine and there's like the angel like, oh, that's what it was like for me. I was like, oh my God, I think she is right. And yet for years after that, I felt like such a fraud because I was 19, 20, 21, and I'm facilitating women who are in their 20s, in their 30s, in their 40s, in their 50s, and they're all asking me like, how do you know this? Like, how old are you? You know? And I felt like out of place. And so for those first years facilitating, I felt like I needed to put on this kind of perfection of like, by the way, like I poop rainbows and I don't have anything from my past that's unhealed. And like I have 10 orgasms a day and I have no limiting beliefs around my body. I don't want to change anything. Like, I just thought that's who I had to be in order for women to take me seriously. That's who I had to be in order to be at the front of the room teaching, facilitating. And what I realized along the way was as I integrated those parts of me that I held shame around, those parts of me that were kind of exiles and I had annexed to the corner, not only did my ability to be with other people because I was being authentically myself instead of this role of like, I am a shining enlightened being. I was being myself so I could be with them and not lose me at the same time. But also this weird thing happened where actually women started to trust me more. And I think there was a turning point for me when I became a mom, or I'll be like really honest, like up until that point, I think I was still performing some kind of version of who I thought I had to be. And then I became a mom unexpectedly during COVID. I went through like a riveting, soul annihilating postpartum depression, like all the postpartum mental health disorders, I had them. And I could not perform this vision of perfection anymore. It was like I was unraveling at the seams, and the more I tried to hold it together, the more things seemed to crumble. And so I had this point of like, I can hold on and white knuckle this like version that I thought I have to be, or I can just surrender to the current of life, be unraveled, be annihilated, and see what's on the other side. So I was gently nudged into full annihilation, full ego death. And what I realized is through that maturation process, women started to trust me more. Women started to feel more connected to me when I could actually speak about what I'd been through. Women started to go deeper in my experiences and I could be with them in a deeper way. And so I think there's a lot of women listening who done the trainings. They've got the certifications, they've got experience. Maybe they're already leading stuff, leading with one-on-one clients, but they're telling themselves like, I've got to wait until I become enlightened, till sun is just constantly shining out of my skin. Like I can't have any mess, any unresolved things for people to take me seriously. And I realized for myself, like healing is a constant spiral. I'm going to be dead if I don't just start doing it now and actually showing up in my humanness. That actually takes people deeper. So for each of you, I want to know like what happens with your clients and what happens in your circles when you actually like show women who you are in your humanness. Do you notice that it takes them deeper? Do you notice, like, what do you feel? What happened for you when you started showing up more authentically? Whoever wants to share, go ahead.
I think this is a really powerful question, but basically I feel like everything is rooted in relationship, whether we're aware of it or not. And sometimes that relationship begins with the one inside our own skin. And there's a quote I love, I think, by Thich Nhat Hanh, and it says, the longest journey you'll ever take is between your mind and your heart. And I think there's something to be said about this is, and I know I said this before, but your body is like a love story, is because when you actually take that journey inside your own skin, which takes a lot of courage to step into the arena of your own story and then live it and share it. Something to be said about that through entrainment and coherence is deeply felt with the women I've worked with. And as a result of, just to continue on the thread of somatics, like right now I'm in somatic therapy school with Mallory, And for the practicum, something that I've been doing is a program called SOMA, but SOEMA, which is sharing our embodied messy aliveness. And the reason I created it this way is because there is a messiness, there is a ruin in the beauty of life. And when we are able to look each other heart to heart, womb to womb, eye to eye, and not from this like patriarchal, hierarchical structure where someone is better than the other, there is a recognition in that relationship that feels connective and relatable. And it becomes this space of what true engagement could do when we're rooted in our heart and our truth versus what can I extract from mixed experience. Because a lot of the wellness world promises a transformation, or it promises some arrival, or it promises we can optimize 10x, da 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 da. And I'm not saying those things are wrong, but if we are first not attuned to what we are plugged into when we're choosing those pathways, it's like we're already missing the source of that which we are seeking, which is truly ourselves. And what I have found in these one-to-one spaces or in these circles is that these women they're not taking or gaining something more as they are noticing what they already have and have had this whole time. And that is true for me as it is for every woman I've had the honor of working with. And I don't think it's far off from what we really seek in relationships. We just forget sometimes to turn inward first. And I think that's common because of the conditionings of our society and the ways we've been raised. And yeah, as humans, we're doing the best we can for what we know until we know and feel different, and then we can make a different choice. And so I just notice in the groups or circles that I've worked with, there's just this reclamation and remembering of their own sovereignty and agency and truth, and what that would mean to let that be a guiding light versus something they run away from, and how their life shapes and reflects back at them when it's something that is what they're leading with. And so, yeah, it's been beautiful to really witness that in other women.
Thanks, Jenny. And I think that there's something to be said there for us as facilitators about modeling that, is like the more integrated and honest and authentic we can be in our circles, even with our clients to a point, there's a level of trust that is built there of like, okay, this woman is taking all the shit and all the muck that life throws at her and she's integrating it. And it's like, in our world that is continuously AI generated, fake, like that's the kind of humanness that I'm noticing my internal compass is seeking. And I think a lot of other women are too. So Kelly and Melissa, I pose that same question, like what happens for you with your clients and your circles when you kind of step down from that like proposed pedestal that a lot of us think we need to be at and actually be real?
Yeah. For a long time, I wouldn't share about how I was and what was present for me in circle because I didn't feel like I should or could, or that it might just be too much. I wanted to seem put together enough to sit in that spot in the circle and facilitate, right? And you taught me this. I never say this is a safe space for you, right? Because I don't know when a person will or will not feel safe, despite my best efforts. But I built safety. I tried to build safety and acceptance and agency into my spaces. And I would say the things, you are welcome here. No part of you is not welcome here. Nothing in you is too much or not enough to be here. And this is a space for you to tend to yourself and all of those things in you. And I think that is so powerful. But it wasn't until I entered myself into the equation and I showed them what that looks like. I showed them that there's no part of me that is too much. There is no part of me that's not enough. And that modeling is so much more important than anything we say, anything we try to convince them. When I brought myself into the circle and showed them that I can be so messy, so human, so healing, and also so magical and so powerful, it permissions them to do the same, to show the same, to explore that for themselves, and just permissioning and embodying and integrating all parts of them in the space. It wasn't until I brought myself there that I started to see that really unlocking for the participants too.
Thank you, Melissa. That is so powerful. Just that notion about modeling, right? In a world where like people can all say and perform and pretend the things, I feel the same of like, you're safe here, you're all welcome here. It's like, there's a big Aquarius rising skeptic in me that's like, yeah, fucking right. And it's like, show me, show me. And so you integrating that is really powerful. Kelly, do you have anything to add?
And to me, showing up authentically is the greatest gift that I can give women. It's the greatest gift I can give myself. I've really sort of leaned back into teaching through my energy and how I show up rather than everything that comes out of my mouth, right? I am someone that I do train a lot of healers and energy workers, and a lot of people do say to me, I could never do what you do. I'm not a Kelly Rae. And the more that they said that, I had to really like think about like, what is it that I'm doing that's making so many people say this to me? And I realized like the greatest gift that I can do is show up 100% Kelly Rae. Yes, I'm going to come with the glam. I'm going to come with the hair and the nails because that is a part of me. I love that I love it all. I love being a woman. I like to think of myself as being a celebration of womanhood. And so I had to really do some deconstructing around that, around what is authentic, like I have a lot of years behind me where I lived in New York City. And if you're a woman in New York City, especially in the 90s and the 2000s before the Me Too movement, it was a different world. So I had that sort of like barrier, that armor, and I had to really let that go and allow people to really see me. So that is how I lead every circle. I think of it as a gift. It's a gift for me to be able to sit in my body, to be able to really alchemize all of my stories. And it is for other women. I look around the space and I see, women who are in their early 20s and they're, it's hard. It is hard to be a woman. And I understand and I get it. And for me, the greatest gift I can give them is to just show up as Kelly Rae 100% all the time.
I love that. It's that, it's like being with people like that. It's like just being around that kind of energy is expansive. And I've noticed that a lot with some of the women who have studied with me, and I've done this myself, I'll say, like I'll study with a teacher and that teacher will be like so aligned with themselves and just like so themselves. And there's a part of me that is like, whoa, what is that? And so I've noticed like when I was younger, when I first started teaching yoga, I would teach it like how my yoga teacher from India taught it. Or when I first started teaching Ayurveda, I would teach it like how my Ayurveda teacher taught it, because seeing them in their authenticity was so infectious that I thought, okay, if I just like kind of copy a little bit what they're doing and like emulate how they talk and the words they use, then that same authenticity will be like bestowed upon me. But that's not the case at all. It's like the reason why you want to emulate that person is not because they're saying the words they say, is not because of the cadence that they use, the stories that they tell. It's because they are themselves. And that kind of energy of being yourself is infectious. Everyone wants to emulate it. But the difference is you can't emulate it because Jenny's different than Melissa and Kelly's different than me. It's like each of us has that unique medicinal signature. And that's one of my goals in Womb Circle. Always, I say to graduates, as you all know, is like, I don't want to create more Ushas. Like, I want to create space for you to be authentically you, because that is like a wellspring of energy that women will come and drink from. That energy of a woman turned on from the inside and like alive, and like Kelly with her nails done. Like, yes, like that's the kind of energy of like, that energy is electric, it's erotic, it's life-giving. And I think that in a world where women are changing their faces and changing their appearances, everyone is just starting to look like each other. And it's kind of scary, the group think that's going on. And it's like, so in that kind of world where there's such strong groupthink, strong pressure to look a certain way, to be a certain way. It's like, especially with women who are especially attuned to that with our social nervous systems, to be yourself is such a great form of rebellion. And that authentic energy is very seductive for women who are so used to performing, who are so used to putting something on in order to belong. And so this kind of brings me into this feeling of group work. And I know a lot of the things that come up for women who are already working with women, or maybe who dream of working with women, is how can I make an impact, the greatest impact possible? If I've been working with clients one-on-one and I've been going deep with them into their own stories and their own histories, how do circles fit into that? How does group work allow me to have the same kind of impact? And so I'd love to hear just what you notice in the difference between working one-on-one versus working with groups, and how groups kind of allow you to share your work in a different way than one-on-one does. Melissa, you're nodding a lot. Do you want to share?
Yeah, I'm thinking about this. I don't know where this quote comes from, but that if the wounding happens in community, the healing must happen in community. I carry that with me so much as a wounded little 7th grader inside of me who was so hurt by community and was so scared of that, and did years and years and years of one-on-one work personally, and was terrified of the idea of sitting in a circle or even like a therapeutic group. Scary. And when I finally let myself be a participant in those spaces and like slowly warm up to being seen, being witnessed, and actually connecting intimately without the masks, without the performance, it's just a whole different type of healing. It gives you this felt sense of acceptance for whatever you are and how messy you may be. It's really powerful to develop a deep, intimate, knowing, trusting relationship with one person, but like to be able to sit in a circle of people, womb to womb, eye to eye, heart to heart, and feel belonging there, like that is so powerful. And so that's my experience as a participant. And I think I just, it feels like such a privilege to be able to offer that to my community as a facilitator too. And I have had people, it's like the most beautiful thing to watch people connect and to watch people exchange numbers afterward and watch them like plan to come back week after week so that they can connect with each other. And there's just, it is so needed. Our world isolates us and glamorizes that, and put on a face before you go out. And so to have a place where you can just kind of melt all of that away and still be so respected and honored and seen, like, it is the privilege of my life to be able to hold those spaces.
I love that. That reminds me, Melissa, of a quote from Ann Voskamp: shame dies and stories are told in safe spaces. And it's like a lot of what we're dealing with as women is shame. And we can sit with ourselves by ourselves. We can sit with ourselves with another person, but there's something about being witnessed and held in community that is like a remembrance. It's ancient. And it's one of the things that we're really missing in our world. So thank you for naming that.
Thank you.
Jenny or Kelly, do either of you want to weigh in?
It's such a different experience healing in a group rather than one-on-one. The ability to see other people are going through the same things, have the same ideas, that you're not in this alone, that is huge. And in Indigenous cultures, that's all that happens, is all the healing happens in community. It all happens in circles. And so it is really important, especially in a world where we are so secluded. I have a lot of people that will only work with me one-on-one, and it's really interesting to see why they work with me one-on-one. And there's just such a medicine. There's just such a love of being able to sit in group, to sit in ceremony, to sit in circle with other people and see that you're not alone, because if you're going through something, everyone is going through it, right? It's just the way that it is. And it helps you to really be able to start connecting. Human beings, we need connection. We need each other. We need other women. We need people that are to understand us. It's part of our biology. And so Yes, one-on-one work is a big part of my life, but that community work, there's nothing like it. It's just my favorite stuff.
I love that. Me too, Kelly. It's like, put me in a group. Like, just put me in a group. Like, put me in a room of women. It's like, there's nowhere else I'd rather be other than there. Thank you for naming that. Jenny, do you have anything to add?
It reminds me of how you put women in the same room for a long period of time and eventually their cycles sync just by virtue of sharing the same energetic container. And yeah, I do. I love group work. And I really feel that now more than ever, if you have capacity and wonder around facilitating in-person group work, it's so needed, especially like when I think of all the women that were in our cohort and just like each one of those people bringing something to their community. And I know online makes it more accessible for some, but something I've noticed in my tiny town is like it's not really well known to experience womb circles. And so that's something I can bring. And when you bring women into spaces like that, just to echo what each of you have said, there's just something so beautiful about not feeling alone in your journey. The space for relation and connectivity. And it's a different type of energy when it is in person. It's just this deeper felt sense of being able to share the room. And I'm sure maybe each of you can relate to this in some way. And I'm just thinking of a circle that I facilitated recently where I invited each person. There were 6 women in the group, but each person was to write down anonymously a challenge they were moving through. And we were just somatically exploring where that challenge landed in the body. And then they placed that challenge into a bowl. And then each woman was invited to pick one out and they were to read that out loud. But what was powerful to notice was just how all 6, well, 7, including myself, of us could relate to the one thing that each person was expressing there and how many emotions moved, but how much healing became available in the noticing of themselves in that person's place. And so that's the power of group work. Like there's such an amplification of going at it alone. And I will say one-to-one work is so potent also because you can always go a little bit deeper and offer attention to that person deeper in a way that group work, it has its limits in terms of timing and things like that, but they're still deep. It's just a different sort of experience. And so I really love both, and I don't favor one over the other, but it's just really, again, it's like what each of us have said, like it's truly a gift to be able to be in the one-to-one space and the group work. And through the Womb Circle Facilitation Certification, you'll be able to do both because it'll give you a taste of what it's like. And I'm reading Emergent Strategy by Adrienne Marie Brown, and she has this quote that says, "Small is all." So even if you're someone that's worried about like who's going to show up in these circles, even if it's one person, it's a tiny constellation in which the potential of that conversation or experience will able to ripple out in the world that our minds can never logically plan out. It's coming from an embodied place of just dropping in and being there with full presence, and it's so fucking magical. You just have to experience it.
I love that. It reminds me what you're all saying. Like, so where I live in the Pacific Northwest, I live like a few hours away from these huge redwood groves. And actually, the way that these super tall trees keep themselves stabilized is through underground networks of branches, and they all loop together and wrap together. And that's how they keep the forest strong, both individually and collectively. And that's what women are like and what our support networks are supposed to be like. And I had this experience last week with one of my podcasts that was released with Allison Armstrong, who, it was like a vulnerable experience for me. And all these women were saying this stuff. And I was like, oh, this is not how I thought it was going to be taken. And I had this feeling of like being excommunicated, of this feeling of like losing community, losing being annexed. And for women, I mean, we all went to high school, right? Like that feels like death when you get excommunicated from a friend group. And so here I am being publicly excommunicated. And I'm like kind of spiraling in that and trying to find safety. And one woman who I love so much, she is like a very well-known poet and author. She messaged me and she's like, "Oh my God, I just listened to your podcast with Allison. Like, I love it. I love you. I love your work." And it was like this, and my entire day turned around because I felt like, okay, I can be excommunicated from this kind of like world. Like these women can excommunicate me. That's fine. They don't get where I'm at right now. They've misunderstood, like whatever it is. Let them have their experience. But now this circle of women who are really holding me to my highest, who are doing insane work that I respect so much, they're welcoming me into their circle. And there's something about that group piece of belonging that is so important, especially when we're choosing an alternative path. Like when we're choosing to leave that toxic relationship with that man who supports us financially, right? When we're choosing to leave that career that gets us all those accolades and validation. When we're choosing to like leave that religion or culture or whatever where we have so much seeming belonging but don't feel actually truly accepted. That kind of mid space of that jump when we first start to discover ourselves, first start to choose that path. And even as we go deeper and come out of the broom closet and just get weirder and weirder, that feeling of like belonging is so vital for us in order to create that foundation of safety. So it's funny, like I didn't even sit in a circle, but just that one woman who I love her work, I respect her, I'm obsessed with her reaching out to me being like, "Hey, like I love you. You belong. Like we see this together." I was like, my entire day shifted. My entire day changed. And so one of the things that can come up a lot in circles facilitating is this idea of energetic protection. Like you're going deep into space with women, into their wombs. And the womb is the chalice of mystery. Like life gestates in darkness. There's this vastness there that a lot of women feel resistance to. And also a lot can be stored there in the hollow organ of the uterus and in the space of the pelvis. So I notice that a lot of women who are thinking about facilitating, who maybe already facilitate, and I dealt with this a lot in my first years, like, how do you stay you while going into these energy fields and experiences that can be charged with emotion, charged with tenderness? And how do you be present with people, but also not take that on? Right? So you're not carrying that client session the rest of your day into dinner with your family. So you're not having nightmares about what came up in your group circle. And you're still able to meet the people there in their tenderness and their vulnerability with that presence. Like, how do you all deal with the energetic load of facilitation? What do you do? Because that's a big thing that comes up for people.
For me, this has been huge. This is like a really, really huge thing for me, especially I went into perimenopause a couple of years ago and I had to really, really redefine my boundaries and my energetics to protect myself, my life, my job, and everything that I was doing. Routine, having a really good routine of you have to have impeccable energetic hygiene of making sure that you come to circle well prepared, that you come to circle feeling really grounded, and really you just have to be able to know that when you walk out that door, like that really does have to be it. Because if you don't, all of those energies just work up in the body, they work up in the mind, and yeah, your nervous system can only hold so much. It really, really can hold so much. So routine, making sure that you have that proper level of support. I have a whole crew of healers and medicine people that I work with very, very regularly to make sure that I'm in my best shape and that it's not just my work, but it's, my son. And when you do go off on this path and, you walk away from a corporate life, you're everything. Like you do everything. So you have to be really, 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 really on top of your self-care. It's really, really important.
What's one thing, Kelly, that you do that like feels like it makes a big difference for you? Like for me, it's covering my body in sesame oil twice a day. That's like my one thing I do. Like my hair actually is oily. Before this interview, I was like, shit, like there's.
I also do that.
Okay. Tell us.
I love oil too. I'm a huge oil person. I love sesame oil too. I'm a kapha. Meditation to the point of like becoming meditative. Like I'm sort of always in a meditative state, especially when I'm in ceremony or when I'm working one-on-one, because I am so sensitive. I'm so incredibly sensitive. And it's something that I really, when healers come to work with me, is like, yeah, it may seem like it's really awesome to be sensitive, but it impacts your whole entire life. And so, yeah, so meditation is a big thing. And then moving, somatics for sure. Lots of reprogramming of the subconscious mind. Yeah.
I love that. Thank you, Kelly. Melissa or Jenny?
I pray. I give myself time before. Something that we learned in that blueprint. There's a time before, and then there's a beginning, there's a middle, there's an after, and then there's an end. And that has really honestly helped me. I feel like in a lot of the teachers that I have loved and where they can be themselves is because beneath that there is a rooting to something that helps maintain the structure through which they can fully show up. And so something that I truly honor before I facilitate is just space for myself, and after space for myself to close the space, and just being in communication with a benevolent energy that I know is co-creating with me, whether that's God or source or the universe, like whatever your word is for it. For me, it's just a felt sense of like emptying out before and after, and calling myself back when I'm done facilitating is always powerful, because it's true that if you're not in check with how you care for self, then it's really easy for that to leak into your personal spaces. And there's something to be said about honoring and learning what is your energetic boundaries around how you are integrous with the hygiene of how you keep that sacred, and how you how you really care for that, because ultimately you are the one stewarding that. And something that Kelly Rae said was having a support system. And that's been helpful too, is just really knowing that I have one or two people that I could call on if things feel heavy, because the reality is we have hearts and we're human. Sometimes you do carry some of those stories with you. And it's just really helpful to have one or two people that you could call on and just unpack that with, so that it's not staying inside your body.
I love that. Like the importance of layers of support, when that thing happened where the Allison episode went in a way I thought it was different than how I thought it would be received. It's like having those layers of support, those women, those people who actually know you and can also be really honestly reflective of you. And for me, that person is Christina. Like she co-facilitates the training with me. She's like my right-hand lady for all of our delivery. And it's so helpful to have her there and be like, actually, Usha, like this is how I saw it. Or you handled that really well. Or actually, I think we could grow into this. And that layer of support, that other nervous system, for any parents here, it's like, I am a single mom, and when I'm just with my child, like, holy shit, the load on my nervous system when it's just one adult nervous system and a child is like so different than when there's another adult nervous system there with you to kind of hold it, share the load, and integrate. So I love that kind of naming of that layer of support and that importance too. Melissa, do you have anything to add?
Sort of just echoing what has been said, that first of all, the support. I have my people that I go to kind of spill anything that's on my heart and my mind before a circle. And then if I need to kind of debrief or process after a circle, I have those people in my pocket, literally, that I can go to. Building ritual around arriving and leaving, like setting up the space. has become like, that's where I'm dropping in and really preparing and saying a prayer for the space and the circle. And then the same afterwards, I tell people, don't clean up, I will clean up. And that's like part of me really like, yeah, closing the space and leaving it where it was. Practicing over and over and over again, continually presence, so that I'm fully present while things are happening, whatever is coming up in the circle. I want to be really present there. And then when I leave the circle, I want to be present to the drive home and to my children and whatever else is going on, really practicing presence. And I think the last piece is having a scaffolding for the circle, having something, the principles of the space, and also the outline of what's going to happen, where I can be really fluid with that too. But something about having that scaffolding, this foundation that we build on top of, but it's real solid, and I know what to expect and they know what to expect. Something about that also just really like comforts me and helps me with that presence, so I can be present there, and then I can put it away and be present for the rest of my life too.
I love that. I remember, I resonate so much with what you're sharing about like the importance of kind of closing down the circle when you're in person. And there's something very important for that for me. And when I first started teaching, so I taught for like 3 years in person trainings, retreats, and I did it all in person. Like hundreds of women would come to Costa Rica to do our stuff. And when I first transitioned online, that was so disorienting for me. I would like be with 100 women, 1,000 women, 5,000 women on a class, and we'd have this super deep experience. And then all of a sudden, I shut the computer and I'm alone in my office. And it's like, what? And so I love what you name of that importance of kind of closing it down, as that being the wind down and the kind of ritual to let yourself know, okay, like I'm leaving this here, this is ending. And one of the things that I do that I'll just add for online things, because I teach so much online now, is I put a blanket over my computer. And that's something that one of my Ayurvedic mentors told me to do, like put a blanket over your computer so that your mind's not seeing your computer and thinking, oh, work, 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 work. And so you're kind of closing that space down. And I remember my partner, he was doing a panchakarma, which is like an Ayurvedic cleanse. And for a month, we put like a blanket over the TV, blanket over all the electronics. Like, okay, we're just shutting down that energy. And I think there's something to be said about, yes, the in-person space, but there, in my experience, is an even more importance to protect yourself energetically with the online work. Because when you're teaching online, facilitating online, sharing online, for years, I used to have this experience of like thousands of umbilical cords connected to me, like so many tentacles. And when we're running ads and reaching millions of people, I can literally feel the drain of people consuming my teachings. I can feel it in my body. And so that importance of being really grounded and like what makes you feel like you, and being in yourself. Like for me, it's covering myself head to toe with oil 2 times a day. I do not miss it. If I do, I pay for it. And those practices that kind of create this separation between what you keep for yourself as sacred and what you share with others. And I think that that's a really important distinction to make in our world, where we're kind of taught to be influencers, to kind of prostitute our energy, to share whatever arises, to discern what do I just get to keep for myself, and then what am I going to share with the world as a part of my work. So one of the things, kind of one of the last questions I want to wrap up with, so many of you have taken so many trainings, right? You've done multiple trainings, multiple certifications, like so many different things. I want to know, like, what makes Womb Circle different? Like, if someone is trying to decipher between Womb Circle and something else, or if they just want to know the vibe of what it's like inside, like, what would you say is kind of the difference between Womb Circle and some of the other things that you've done? I'm honestly just curious for myself as well.
Something I'm obsessed with about this training is that it is experiential. You're learning the things that you need to know, but you're also sitting in circle week after week after week, sometimes a couple times a week, if I remember right. Like, and you are in it and you're experiencing it. And I remember early on this, like digesting some of your teachings, being like, I don't know if I can do this. People are going to think it's too woo-woo. It's going to be too big of a change. Like, can I do this? But after, gosh, sitting in those spaces so often and really immersing myself in the experience and the medicine of it, I was like, oh, I have to do this. I have to do this full out because it is medicine and I want to bring this medicine to my people. So the learning coupled with the experiencing and then the practicing, it's just like a trifecta, baby. It's everything you need. Yeah, it's so good. Yes. Yeah. That's my take. I'm obsessed with it.
I would say something that stands out for me about Womb Circle Facilitation Certification. Let me count the ways. But I would say one thing that I really appreciate is that I can feel your belief in this work. And for what it's worth, to anyone out there who has taken all the things or feels like they need to take all the things, something that stands out for me when I'm working with you as a teacher is I remember I used to say, what I teach teaches me. And something I deeply admire and that I also aspire to integrate into my work is to leave that door open for the people that are investing and trusting in the thing that you're offering by allowing them to continue to be a part of that family long after their certification is complete. And I see how you do this because, I don't know, was it 2 years ago or 3? My womb circle, my womb and wellness journey began with Koa, who's turned 5 in February. So like 5 years. And it just feels like it's a family I didn't know that I would weave into my life or that I didn't know I would appreciate or that continues to appreciate my work and is watching in the background, not watching, but witnessing in the background how I share this work and is willing to support my own journey. So I'd say like support is one of the biggest things. And I've been in other spaces where like it just ends and then you're like, oh, what the fuck do I do now? But there's this continued thread that, and it circles back to what I said at the beginning, where there's this tapestry that will continue to weave, not only in this space, but in anything in your life in which you can take an experience that you've integrated from Womb Circle into any part of your real live life, which is kind of cool and magic when you think about it. And I just deeply appreciate that because it just, that belief in your work and that belief you have in all of us really transcends, for myself anyway. I could feel that ripple out into how I create and how that feels like an energy that carries through. And it's hard to wrap that up into words, but again, it's a felt sense that I just love so much.
Thanks. I was really blown away by the training. As someone who has done all the certifications, I've done multiple different ceremonial and circle trainings. And when I joined that program, or when I joined the facilitation program, I was really coming out of a sort of like a darker period of time. And I'd been burned, I'd been excommunicated. I was moving through, I was having a lot of sisterhood wounds come up. And the way that the whole team of Women Wellness works together and the level of support that is like, I was literally blown away. I was like, that is working amazing. And that is working amazing. And everything was just done so well. And I was like, wow, this is what it could be like. This is really, really impressive. And then just the way that you structured the classes was just so good. And it was just done so, so well. And all of the material and you can just tell that you just live and breathe this stuff and it's your soul medicine. And yeah, I was really, really blown away and coming in with a lot of baggage. So
Oh,
fuck yeah.
That's awesome. Thank you, Kelly. That's great. And yeah, I just want to like take a moment because I feel like really alive and jazzed about it. And it's really true whenever we start to open doors to this training. I'm like, yeah, it's like a springtime, like it's womb circle time. And I really feel like I had this awareness, before I had my daughter. I was like, my team, my business partner, Camille, she was one of my students before she had taken one of my trainings, and she sent me a message on Facebook. Hey, I have an idea for an online business. Like, I want to talk to you about it. In my true Usha way, I just like didn't respond for weeks and weeks because I was like leading a container. And when I'm in a container, I'm just like leading the container. So I was leading a yoga teacher training in India, and I got that message. And when she pitched me the idea of bringing my work online, it was just this instant fuck yes. Most people wouldn't give away 50% equity in their company without like any talks, but that's just not kind of woman I am. So I was just like, yeah, let's do it. 50% partner. Let's do it. When we first started that, I was like, we're going to be Facebook. Like, we're going to be Instagram. Like, we're going to be the biggest platform. We're going to build an empire. Like, this is going to be the place for women's health. And then when I had my daughter, my human limits became extremely clear of like, actually, I don't want to do that. And actually, I want to make sourdough, and I want to make my own herbal oxymils and tinctures. I don't want to build the biggest possible thing, but I want to create a mass shift in consciousness. And I realized that the way to do that was not through me. The way to do that is through women. And so my intention with this training, and it's like, it just makes me feel so excited. Like, I feel like this is like foreplay. Like, I'm like so excited by this. I want to like run around naked right now hearing you all talk, because it's like, yeah, the whole intention is that each of us gets this seed planted in us, and then we become this tree that creates shade for our communities, that brings beautiful flowers and blossoms and fruits all year long. And then, the women who come to your tree, they take some of those seeds home and plant them in their own gardens. And all of a sudden, we've reforested this entire planet with beauty. And it's like, that's the power of sharing this work in the world, is that everyone here and everyone listening, like, each of us has a unique story, a unique way of doing things. And who's going to connect with me is going to be different than who's going to connect with you. And so there's really the importance and the medicine of each of us coming together and being the torchbearer in our community, being the lighthouse for other women to illuminate the path. So as we close out, I'm going to borrow from Tim Ferriss here, whose podcast I love. And Tim Ferriss asked his guests, like, if you had a billboard, what would it say? And I'm going to ask each of you that, like, if you had a billboard that all women in the world could read, and they're just passing by, just a quick little thing, like, what would your billboard say? What feels like the most important thing that you want women to remember? No pressure, right? Just a little shebang at the end that I've just pulling out. But I'll go first, okay? Just as a true facilitation modeling. I won't ask you to do anything that I'm not willing to do myself. If I had a billboard, it would say, like, you are fucking magic. And I think that is something that I really forgot in my life for a long time. And I lost a lot of that magic trying to like fit in, trying to belong, trying to be taken seriously. And in the last few years, I've just really come back to this magic that I've always had since I was a little girl. And I want all women to remember that you are fucking magic, and that big remembrance there. So that's what my billboard would say. You are fucking magic. What about you? Who wants to go next? Billboard time.
I wish we could all have a billboard.
Me too. Let's
Do-
do it.
The thing that came to me is trust your hunger. It is sacred. I think we're taught to be polite about our hunger and our goals and our drive and our passion, and to keep it small and keep it palatable to others. And I want to see women on fucking fire, insatiable, but also fed. That's what I want. That's what I want them to know.
It's true. Thank you.
My billboard would say, "Hey, beautiful, you are lovable and you matter." And then it would just be a picture of me.
I would love to pass that on the freeway, Kelly. I support that. And I'll start that because you have
The thing, yeah. And those are two of the things, that I think a lot of women really struggle with, is feeling lovable and feeling like they matter.
Thank you, Kelly.
I think mine would say your essence is essential in this world, because I feel like so many of us as women are out there trying to seek our purpose and discover who we are, when really it cannot be where you are not. And sometimes we just need to remember our truth to discover what's already been there, and that has always been there and is the thing that's guiding you back to the place where you discover it. And so my living prayer for every woman is that they know their essence and how fucking essential it is in this world. We are the womb and the evolution and the power and the magic. And yeah, I just hope we all get to know that in this lifetime.
Thank you, Jenny. And thank everyone so much for coming. If anyone listening feels the call to join us for this round of Womb Circle, I only run it once per year. You can go to circlefacilitator.com to join us. Thank you all so much for your presence, for your wisdom, and for sharing from your lived experience. Thank you so much for tuning in to the Women Wellness Podcast. If this episode touched you in some way, it would mean so much if you could subscribe and download this episode. If you want to learn more about my work, you can go to womenwellness.com or come say hi on Instagram, send me a message, and tell me what you loved about the show.